Movement is the most powerful influencer of one's health span. There are 4 pillars of movement: mobility, strength, metabolic, and power training. In this short webinar, we will be focusing on metabolic. Metabolic conditioning is at the core of everything we do in life, whether at work, play, or sport. If we do not have proper metabolic conditioning for the specific demands of the activity, the body's systems begin to break down. Compensatory patterns develop, inefficient movement occurs, and possible injury awaits. Metabolic conditioning consists of different zones of training, different intensities. We are specifically focusing on Zone 2 within this webinar. Zone 2 training has shown to improve cardiovascular health, decrease stress, and improve overall mental health, improve recovery times, and promote better sleep. It also helps prevent injury through improved muscular endurance. Zone 2 training is at the foundation of improving your health span and longevity, as well as performance training. Let's begin to explore what Zone 2 training is, what activities that are commonly associated with Zone 2 training, and how much you should do weekly. Zone 2 activity is termed as subthreshold steady state. Zone 2 activity is associated metabolically with being in a fat oxidative state. Fat oxidation occurs between 45 to 65% of the maximum amount of oxygen utilized during exercise for energy. The need for energy to sustain Zone 2 activity stresses the mitochondria in our type 1 muscle fibers. Our mitochondria are known as the powerhouse of our body's cells for energy production. Energy is created through oxidative phosphorylation, a catalyst to produce ATP, ATP being energy. This is where oxygen breaks down free fatty acids within the cell for this ATP. The most accurate way to identify your energy training zones, and specifically your Zone 2, is through formal metabolic testing, VO2 max, and lactate threshold testing. Not everyone has access to formal VO2 testing in their area. So let's look at a few other ways we can identify Zone 2 training. Generically, one can utilize common heart rate formulas to get an idea of their Zone 2. Zone 2 traditionally has been associated with being at 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. There are many formulas to identify what that target heart rate of 60 to 70% is. The most generic formula is 220 minus your age, which equals your maximum heart rate. Then take your maximum heart rate and multiply it by 0.6 to 0.7 to identify your Zone 2. Once again, not the most accurate way to identify your Zone 2, but it at least puts you in the ballpark. Today's popular feedback tools, such as the Apple Watch, Fitbit, Whoop, and more, can accurately help decipher your training zone. Also, utilizing a rate of perceived exertion, utilizing your RPI or RPE 4 to 5 out of 10 is another identifier of Zone 2 activity. Think of it as the ability to speak 10 to 15 words in a sentence while exercising without an urge to take a breath. This potentially is a stronger indicator than generic heart rate formulas. Zone 2 activity is usually performed in one plane of motion. The type of Zone 2 activity is completely based on the individual, their current fitness level, or their ability based on that specific activity. One Zone 2 activity might, for example, work for cycling, but for running it becomes too high. Running in that example might become a fast walk. The most common forms are jogging, cycling, hiking, and rucking. The U.S. Physical Activity Guidelines is calling for a minimum of 150 minutes weekly of Zone 2 activity. Depending on the demand and the goals of the activity, Zone 2 activity does not have an upper ceiling limit. If you have 60 minutes a day, go for it. Zone 2 activity is best spread out throughout the week, but as a guideline, anywhere from 2 to 6 days per week, based on your schedule. Zone 2 conditioning is at the foundation of any self-care program aimed at increasing health span. It is instrumental in fighting off metabolic syndrome, heart disease, and dementia. I urge you to be non-negotiable with the time spent each week on Zone 2 activity. Remember, a minimum of 150 minutes weekly.